Hi there, everyone. Welcome to STEM Lockdown Digital School. This is grade 12 IT, and I'm glad to see some of the grade 11s that are invited is joining us as well. Some of them have done SQL already, and maybe the adult tables are a bit hairy today, but that could be a good introduction of what they're going to do next. So I am Lelani Lagranzi, your presenter for today. And as promised, we're going to look at the supplementary paper, which was the one written last year in May, June 2019. And it's question 2. So this will be our database question. Please feel free to open the chat and ask a question in there if there's anything that is unclear, or if you have any other question, even if it's not related to what we're doing here today. And then either we're going to deal with it today or maybe in the next lesson. So I'm not sure when you guys downloaded it now, but I actually have this document, unfortunately, in 2 parts, which is maybe not a bad thing because I can quickly show you guys the database information. So this is that page that is usually at the back. Hi, Sean. And at the back, you will find the names of the tables and then also the design of the database. Remember, your database is locked, so you can't open it to have a peep to see what are the data types. Now, in here, they're telling us here there's a plant code. This is TBL plants, and it's a unique code. So you guys tell me in the chat, answer me, what is the meaning of that? What is that field doing, or what is its name if it's a unique code for each plant? I'll continue to explain, and then you guys type me the answer. Then we have, so the plant code is text, the description is text, and the category is text, as well as the size of the pot. Yes, Sean, it is the primary key. Well done. So plant code is our primary key, which means it's a unique value allocated to each record in the database. If you have a look at the size of the pot, obviously it could have been numbers. So it's important to note that these were the pot sizes were small, medium, large, and so on. So it's text and not a size as in a number. And then we also had different colors for the flowers. And then the price that the plant was selling at, and then how many plants were currently in stock. So how many is left to be bought or ordered. And that is actually something we're going to deal with today. So there is then just an example of the data, so you can see what it contains. And then the next table, TBL order, this would now be the first, their unique or their primary key field is an auto number. And then we have the invoice number, which is text. Note, you have to make sure that the invoice number is text, because maybe someone have decided to have integer invoice numbers as well. Then we have the plant code named the foreign key. So that would mean that is the field through which the tables are linked. And how this works is that here is the plant code, and that is one plant can have many orders. So that's my foreign key. So that's the field through which we're linking the 2 tables, and we are going to read from both tables today. Then the number of plants ordered by a specific, so for this invoice number, how many plants did the person order? And then also how many plants was delivered. Okay, so there's just an example of the database, and there is your relationship. This is what I call the parent table, because one parent can have many children. So one plant have many orders. Okay, so now we have an idea of what the database looks like. That would be the page you're tearing out, you're putting it next to you, so that you can keep track of the data types that you need to use in your wheres and everywhere else in your SQL code. So if we have a look at question 2.1.1, this is the SQL section of the question papers, your 2.1. And very simple question always. This one is just also telling us which table to look at. So it's telling us read from the table TBL plants, and all we want to see is the plants that are in the rose category. So very simple. I'm going to share my screen with you guys now so you can see what I'm doing. If I have a select, well, I'm displaying all the fields, so we'll just say select all from TBL plants. They gave us the table that we have to read from, where the category is equal to rows. Very important is that rows, the value of this category is in double quotes because category has a text data type. So remember, text data types, the value needs those double quotes. So 3 very simple, easy marks for you guys to score. So let's have a look at the next question. The next question is asking us to display plant code category, blah, 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 those fields from, again, they gave us the name TBL plants. And we only wanted to see the flowers and roses. So in your category here, you should only be seeing flowers and roses. But they say any type of pink color. So you are actually looking for a field that contains the word pink. So that there, let's just go to the solution. And important here is that you guys list the fields in the order that they give you. So don't swap them around and don't have more fields and don't have less fields. You must understand that some of our marks are allocated for easy marks. Now, what you place in your select when you're just displaying fields, that's the easy mark. So they mark it a little stricter than they would anything else. So make sure you don't have more fields, you don't have less fields, and that you match the order of the screenshots. And they told us that it was from TBL plants. And I don't know if all of you are aware, but in SQL, we also have an in operator. And the in operator, in this case, can use text data types, whereas in Delphi, we can only use integers and chars. So that is quite handy because instead of writing this long where you say where the category is equal to the flower or the category is equal to rows, and both of those conditions would have to be grouped in a bracket, you can just use your in operator. What you need to be aware of is that your category here is a string data type or text data type. So every value in the round brackets will have to have quotes around them and separate them with commas. Also note that the in operator in SQL has round brackets and not square brackets as in Delphi. So a very handy little operator to use is the in. Note there's no equal sign there. And then they also said, but I only want to see flowers and roses that contain the word pink. And this is where the like would come in. Nothing else that we can use. I know in the previous examples, I showed you guys how we could use, instead of a like for date time data types, we could use month or day or year. But for a text data type, there's no other option than to use the like. So make sure you know how to use it. Important that it's an and then color like, and then in here we're placing pink in double quotes. And remember, the percentage sign indicates any number of characters. So it would find also no characters. In other words, just the word pink, because any number also means 0. So it would find the color pink, and it will also find rose pink or pink rose or whatever the color was containing the word pink. So important is that those percentage signs are in the inside of the double quotes, and that your like does not have an equal sign, because that's usually where you guys mess up. Okay, so also not that difficult. Make sure you know how to use your like. And let's go to the next question. So you guys tell me what was needed in this question. There are several clues. So the one clue here, you can type up the answer for me. I'm not going to show it until I have an answer there from you guys. The one clue here was that we're calculating the average price for the plants per category. That word per category or for each category indicates something for me. Yes, we're going to use AVG. That is correct, Sean. And then what else would we have to use in order to produce this output? If you have been watching the videos, my rule is that when you're displaying a field and you have an aggregate function, there's something we need to use. Yes, Sean, we need to use a group by. And the group by, so the rule is, if we're displaying a field and then we have an aggregate function. So aggregate functions are average, min, max, count, and sum. If you have one of those aggregate functions and you're displaying a field, that indicates that you need a group by. And the group by is always on the field that I'm displaying, and I'm displaying category. Also, the word that I'm calculating an aggregate function, which in this case is average, per category, that also indicates to me that I need a group by, because you need to group all the categories of plants together. So let's say, interesting name here, flower, but anyway, let's take rose. I think that would be a better category. So let's say we have rose. I want to put all the roses together and I want to calculate the average price per rose. And that's when we need to use the group by. So a group by is not hard to use. The hardest part of your group by is to know when to use it. So let me take you guys back to the solution here. So I'm displaying the category field. Oh, we also, part of the question, I forgot to read that to you guys now, but part of the question told us to format it as a currency value. But you could also see in the screenshot, if you have the question paper there in front of you, you'll see the screenshot is showing you a currency as well. So there is my aggregate function, and my format has two arguments. The first being the value that I want to format, then a comma, and my second argument is how I want to format it. So to display currencies, and don't worry if your computer at home is set still on dollars because you still have the American settings, that's fine. We're going to run these programs on a computer that is formatted to South African rands. So we won't see your dollars. We will see the currency that the computer we're running it on is displayed. So all you need to do is just put currency in quotes. But please don't get confused. Don't put there FF currency. FF currency is for normal Delphi, and that is when we're using floater string F. And then we have as average price. We're still reading from TBL plants, and we group by, remember the space between group and by, category. And category is the field that I'm displaying with my aggregate function. Okay, so that now, let's take you guys to the next screen. We have the invoice number of, we're actually looking for the invoice number F2, and the question is asking us to display. Now you kind of need to have the layout of the tables as well, but I'll quickly help you guys. It mentions here TBL orders. The number ordered and the invoice number, both of those fields are in TBL orders, but the description isn't. That is in your TBL plants. So that is an indication to me that I need to read from both tables. So in my from, I have to list both tables. TBL orders, and then we have TBL plants is the other one. If I go back here, you guys are able to see them. Well, let's just look at the relationship. That's enough. So I have TBL plants and I have TBL orders, and TBL plants contain the description, but TBL orders contain the invoice number and the number ordered, I think was asked. Yes, the number ordered. So therefore I need to use I need to read from both tables. We also had to make sure that in our where we're only looking for invoice numbers with F2s because we only wanted to show those. Okay, so let's have a look at the solution here. So for question 2.1.4, we're displaying the invoice number. Again, remember, don't display more or less fields and put them in the same order as in the screenshot. So it was invoice number, description, and number ordered from both tables. So now you need to list there both tables, TBL orders, comma, TBL plants. And now if you are reading from both, I think Joey can go. I don't think he's part of IT. Thank you, host. If we're reading from both tables, then the first thing we need to do is in our where, we have to indicate that link. So as per your screenshot, you have to indicate how they are linked. And it doesn't matter with which table you start. Those who've been following me, we can either start with a parent table or the child table, does not matter. But what we need to do is we do need to name the name of the table dot, and then the field name is equal to TBL, the other table. So if you start with plants, then orders will go next, dot plant code. And the reason why we have these table names and then a dot is not because it's the link, it's because the name plant code is in both tables. And SQL gets confused. You know, computers aren't very clever. So we have to tell it, there are two plant codes. Sure, they are the same thing, but we need to indicate which table we are reading from and then put an equal sign there. So that is just indicating your link. So the moment you read from both tables, that's your first statement after the where we have the link to the table. And then as in this example, if you have another condition, you then will always have an and. So two tables, first thing is the link, then always an and if you have another condition. And the invoice number was a text data type. So we had to say invoice num equals to, and then we have the quotes there. You'll see that invoice num, I'm not proceeding with the name of the table it's in, because if we look at both tables, in both tables, there's only one field named invoice num, so I don't have to worry about that. Let me just quickly read Scott's question here. May we create the alias for the table? Yes, you can create the alias for the table. What Skulk is referring to here is you can, let's say I put an O there. So what I'm saying is TBL orders, I'm going to use the alias O for TBL orders and then P for plants. So instead of then in your where, you're not going to use TBL plants, but you're going to use P dot and then O dot plant code. So yes, you are able to do that. The only thing that I've noticed before is that if you wanted to display this plant code here, let's say that was part of my output, and for some reason I didn't use my alias and I did this. You would think it worked, but it actually doesn't. So once you've decided to use the alias, you have to continue to use the alias. You can't jump from one to the other. But it's not needed that everyone uses this method. You can use either one of the two methods. I'm just going to undo quickly what I've done. So if your teacher hasn't explained to you the aliases, that really doesn't matter. You can pick either one of the two to use in your exam. So Skulk, I hope that answered your question. Okay, so the next question here is update. So what this question is saying is that we want to update, but it's easier. I'm gonna, if you haven't read the question yet, I know the grade 11s haven't. If I just look, I'm going to show you the example here of output. This first screenshot is before the records were changed, and the second one is after the update statement ran. So the first part, what they're saying is if the number delivered does not match the number ordered, you have to change the number delivered to the number ordered. So that is what they're asking. And also the person is entering the number, the item number for which this change needs to be applied. So in this case, they entered 6. So we're looking for item number 6. And this was in my ordered table. So important is, let me just quickly share that. Sorry, the sharing is not always that easy. Okay, here we go. So first of all, the person enters the number. So they enter, for example, a 6. I often, when I'm doing any code in any one of the 4 questions, I always put a default value there in my input box. You are allowed to do that. It just speeds up your running of your testing of your program. Instead of having to type a value more than once because you have to run it more than once, you can just click OK every time you're testing your program, which does save you some time for that question 4 that we need to gain time on because it's our harder question. So I'm going to store that number there as is item. Now, you can store it as a string, but the reason I'm not storing it as an integer, the reason I'm not storing it as an integer is then I would have to add my typecasting here. And I have to say string to int here, store it as an integer, and then where I use it in my SQL statement, I have to int a string again. So I'm just wasting time coding. The only time I would store the input here as an integer, and I'm only talking about SQL, this question too. For the others, please store them as integers. But if the question maybe asked me to validate the number, and I had to test that the number was in a range from 1 to 100 or something like that, yeah, sure, then I would store it as an integer. But since I'm not doing anything else with this number, I'm just going to add it to my SQL statement. Just save it as a string because it saves you a lot of time. Important with the update is that you remember to study the format. So when you have, it starts with update, then the name of the table that you want to change. And this is our orders table. Then a set, then the field that I want to change. So this is the one receiving a value. We don't use the colon equal sign like we would in Delphi. We're just going to put an equal sign there. And remember the question said change the number of change the number that's delivered to the number ordered. So the two must match, and you're taking the value that is in the field number ordered, and you are assigning it to the field number delivered. Our host can definitely let Simangaliso in. I know him, so he is welcome to join us. I know he joined late, but that is fine. Okay, so we are going to change the number delivered field to the number ordered, and it would be where the item number is equal to what the person entered. And the person entered, for example, is 6 now. And remember, item number is a number, so we don't need to use quoted string or anything else around that variable. We can just add our variable. When you're coding your SQL statement, you must imagine the caption property of a label, because that's really what it looks like on the right. All your SQL code must be in blue and your variables must be in black. So it's almost as though you're displaying this line in a caption of a label. And if you did this, so let's say you didn't, sometimes you guys do this. Ooh, you would do that. So my variable is not in black. What's happening here is you actually searching for a value called plus s item num and not the value that was stored in your variable. You can imagine if I try to output this in a caption of a label, I would see literally plus s item num. Instead of seeing, if I change it this way, instead of now seeing the value that the person entered and I stored in my variable. So that is important. Okay, so we're moving on to addo tables, and not all of your, I know all the grade 11s haven't done this, and this is what they're going to do next. So since you guys are joining, don't be afraid. Don't let this put you off. This was actually quite a complex question. It's the longest 2.2.1 I have seen. So for question 2.2, this is really the most involved that any question I've seen before. But it's a good one to practice. It really tests your nested if statements quite a bit. There's a whole bunch of code provided for you to select the value from the combo box, and also it was important to note that there was variables given as well that you had to use because they were global variables, and they were then used by the next button. So okay, so this is just all the explanation of what is given, provided code, and so on. Then they say write code to determine whether there's enough stock available. So the person is going to pick a plant from this combo box, and you have to loop through your table using your while loop and find that plant. Once you find that plant, you are then going to see if there is enough stock available for the number that they have ordered. So the stock is stored in your database, and they have entered the number of plants they want to order. So we have to check that there's enough stock. If there's not enough stock available, we're going to display a message showing the number of plants in stock. So you're showing the value from your database. Ask the user then if they want to continue, but they won't be able to continue with the original number that they've ordered. They can continue with the order, but only with the number available then in stock. And then if depending on what they answer, we will then display the plant code and number and so on if they say yes. But if they say no, we'll display the order is cancelled. And also note we're going to enable and disable buttons. And then they give you, I'm just going to show you this example of output. They give you 3 sets of examples of output. Please don't just test the first one, because if the first one works, the next ones does not necessarily work because it's all in a nested if. So when they're giving you more than one screenshot or more than one set of input, it means that you need to test them all because there are different scenarios for going into different papers. Sorry, I'm reading the chat and talking at the same time. But there's different scenarios going into those different if statements. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys this. Carl, this is the paper last year, May, June paper. It's called the Supplementary paper of 2019. You can download it from the education.gov.za website. But let me show you guys. Let me just go to the right screen and share with you guys. Oh, no, it doesn't want to share. Okay. So this is the code they've given, number ordered. And as you can see, you don't see number ordered and S plant code here. And remember I said to you guys, when you start an exam, always go open the program. Before you start coding, open the program and see what is given. And you can see here, number ordered and plant code is given because we are going to use it in both these buttons for question 2.2. So 2.2.1, I'm going to loop through this table. The first thing that I need to do is make sure that my cursor is at the top, or the active record is my first record in my database. So that's why I have TBL plants.first. Then I have my while loop. That doesn't change. While not TBL end of file. Grade 11s who are watching, you have seen those parts before. And now what I'm doing is I am looping through my table and I'm testing each record against the input. And I want to find the record where the name of the field, well, where the name of the plant code or the value of the plant code in the record is equal to what the person selected. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm looking at plant code for each record. And if I find that plant code, I'm then going to execute the rest of this if statement. So this if statement, the first if statement here is testing if there is enough stock. So what I'm doing here is I am taking the value that is in stock and I'm testing if it's greater than or equal to the number ordered. Remember, they can deplete your order. They just can't order more than there is stock of. So it's important to have the equal sign there. So I'm testing if the amount of stock left, if there's enough stock left for the number that they ordered. And if there is, I'm going to display in my rich edit. Please, guys, remember these labels. They are marks for labels. And then your field names, plant code is text as well as color, so that we can just add with our normal plus. Number ordered, that's what the person ordered. So I need to display that global variable. And then the price. So the price is also in TBL plants. We're only using TBL plants in this one. And important though is we want to show it as a currency value. So you have to use floater string F, field name, that's the value here, the price of this plant as a currency, and then 2 decimal places. You will also ask to enable your button. So that's what I've done there. Now, the second part of this question said, if there wasn't enough stock, you needed to display a message. And I'm going to use a show message here with a label and then also displaying the number of stock. So the in stock was a number, so I have to use into string around that field name. And I'm just showing the person how much stock is left. And then I had to ask the person, are you sure you want, or do you want to change your order? We can't accommodate you for what you wanted, but we have the following in stock left. So maybe, let me just enter there so you guys can see. So I have the stock, this is how much stock I have left, and I've included the number of stock left in my input box here to display. You'll also see in the screenshot that the number of stock left was available in the input box to the user. And the user is going to either type in yes or no as the answer. If they answer yes, now I always, with input from the user, I always make sure my code is not case sensitive unless the question tells me otherwise. So I am adding here, if the uppercase of the answer is Y, then I need to change the number that the person ordered, because this is the part of my if statement where there wasn't enough stock left. So what I'm doing is they've said, yes, I want all the stock that you have left. So that's why I am assigning what we have in stock to their number ordered. And this was important because the next button uses this inum ordered variable. And then we just display the top part here of the rich edit is the same as the previous one. And then I enable that button again. Now, if they clicked, if there wasn't enough stock left and they said, no, I don't want to continue with my order, all I had to do here in the else was cancel, display ordered canceled, and then disable this button BTN 2.2.2. I disabled it because the question asked me to, but also remember they can come back to 2.2.1 and order again. So it's important to change the enabled property to false to disable that button. Very important is your .next. Your next, so this here is the end. Obviously, you guys can see the color now. So that's the end of the blue if statement. This is the end of the green if statement. So this is also an if statement. And this here is the end of my while. Very important is that your .next is outside of any if or else. That is always true, except, so we always put that .next outside of if and else statements, just inside of our loop. The only exception is when we are deleting inside of a table. Then we would place that .next in an else. Okay, so yes, this one was actually quite involved for a 2.2.1. You just have to keep track of your nest left there, and then you should be fine. And then the next part of the question was just asking us to do an insert. So that wasn't really very hard. Few things that you had to keep in mind. You had to now use your global variables for the plant code and the number ordered. And they wanted you to set the number field to 0. And they said that the invoice number there was F2. So there wasn't really much to this question. So I'm going to take you guys there to my memo. If we have a look there, just remember, so we start with the table we want to insert into, dot insert, and we end with the name of the table, dot post. Very important, because that changes your record in your database or adds it for you. Then on the left of the assignment statement goes our field values or field names of the fields that we want to insert into. And they said that F2 was my invoice number. We just have to put it in quotes. You can't just do that. That won't work. So we have to put it there in quotes. Then we use the plant code and the number ordered. And we set it to those two fields, and those two were my global variables. And then they said the number delivered, because this was only at the stage where the plants were ordered and they weren't delivered yet. That was then assigned to the value 0. And then we had to display a little message there to say the order has been placed. So this part wasn't really very, very difficult. I have something else for you guys today, because we still have 10 minutes left. Any questions, you're welcome to ask the questions in the chat. So, but what I want us to do today is I want you all to open the chat. I'm going to show you a theory paper. And I do believe, wait, don't want to show it yet. I do believe that you guys can score extra marks if you practice. There's 2 questions to practice. Well, no, I'm lying. There's 4 to practice. The others is just studying. That I really can't help you with. You have to sit, make summaries, and study, and that's really it. But I believe that with practice, question 1.1, which is multiple choice, 1.2, give one word for, and question 4 and 5, which is really the practical side inside of the theory paper. I think that you can actually up your mark by making sure that you practice those questions. So that's what we're going to do. So I am going to show you guys the paper, and I want the answer for question 1.1. All you have to do is type the answer. Is it A, B, C, or D? So this is a type of malware. Disguised, yes, Skulk, you're correct. The answer is the Trojan. That is option D. So where a program is disguised malware, so a form of malware, which could be any one of those. All these are malware: virus, rootkit, worm, and Trojan. But the moment that it's disguised, it is a Trojan, like the Trojan horse of Troy. Then the next question. Now this is grade 10 work, guys, and you do have to know this. As you can see, this is the final theory paper of 2018. And this is a while ago. Maybe my grade 11s would be able to answer this for us. Software that may be used for free, but with a time and functionality limit. So A, B, C, or D. We have done this all in grade 10. And hopefully we all know that it's not the EULA. Still, guys, are you going to take a guess? The answer is not D, Scott. Sean, it's not D. So we know it's not D. And IFO 11. Okay, so let's talk about what these are. You guys clearly can't remember that far back. Freeware is software that I can download for free and distribute for free. And we're talking about legally. No, D is not the answer. So it's not freeware. because I get the full functionality. For example, if you guys did Scratch, you download it and it uses. You guys don't download Notepad++. Fantastic, it works. You download it and it continues to work. Proprietary software is software that I have to pay for to get access to. And also, I don't have access to the source code. The EULA is the end user license agreement. So that's not even software at all. That's that whole agreement that you guys just click yes on or agree when you are done installing software. So the answer is shareware. And remember, shareware is something that I download and I don't have the full functionality, for example, of the program. They have included here the time and functionality, but it could be either or. I know that some of those HP laptops years ago, they came out with these programs that you open, and then there's a coin that falls in every time you play the game. So it was, you could play the game for free for a number of times, and then after your coins, so the number of times you opened it expired, you had to then pay to get the access to the games further. You also have something like, for example, I use YT Downloader, which is helps me to download YouTube videos. And I don't have the full functionality of the program. So all I really want to do is download the YouTubes. And it has more to it. I haven't actually investigated it, but every time I close it, I know it gives me this message on, oh, don't you want to pay to get full functionalities? Also, you get software so this is all examples of shareware. I have, for example, downloaded Screencast-O-Matic to record videos for lessons. And it gives me, for the free version, it gave me a maximum of 15 minutes that I could record. And also it had the little logo there in the corner, and it had limited functionality in terms of being able to edit the video. Now I've paid for a year license for that. So that now opened up for me. I can record as long as I want, and I have more functionality to actually edit my videos. So that is an example of shareware where I have limited functionality. So it could be related to time. It could also say you have a 10. Oh, you guys have an example. We have shareware, because if we look at Delphi that you guys get the code from school, you get 365 days that you are able to download, to use Delphi. After 365 days, so there's a time limit, not on how many times I open it, but in terms of days. After that 365 days, you need a new code, else it's not going to work. And that is, sorry, grade 12s, but once you leave school, you won't have access to Delphi anymore. It's only meant for GDE school learners, so that's why it's done. Okay, so let's have a look at the next question. We still have a few minutes to go. So I need the answer of which one is not a duty of a system analyst. Oh, I can't remember which year this was in, but let's have a look. Skulk, you think it's D? You are correct. It is D. The system analyst actually does not write the software. They just talk to the clients and prepare a list of what they need. And also then they're almost like a translator between normal people and programmers. Okay, let's have a look at question 1.1.4. This was interesting because I actually have never thought about this. Remember now, bot maths applies. So you guys will have to take out your, well, I hope you don't need a calculator for this one. It's not that difficult. And remember that Delphi will follow bot maths. But there was something new here. I was actually not sure at this point, was multiply or divide, which one goes first. So let's see what you guys think the answer is for question 1.1.4. It was worth 2 marks. So even though we're just writing down an A, B, or C, or D, this answer was worth more than 1. So let's see who can get the answer of this one. You can take a guess. just before we end this. So Skulk, you're saying it's C. It's actually not C. Let's see who else. Okay, so we know it's not C. Who else has an answer? A. No, it is correct, Pramit. A is the correct answer. And the reason for that is that this code will execute this part first from left to right. So your multiply and your div and your mod and your divide, they're all on the same level, and whatever comes left will be done first. So it's almost like there's a bracket here. So we're going to say 5 times 7, and that would be 35. Div 2, that would give me 17. And then plus 2, that is 19. And then deduct from 19 the square of 4, and that is 16. So that gives me the answer of 3. There was an error actually in this paper. I know what they tried to accomplish, but there was an error in this paper. This was actually trying to get the write the power function, but there are numerous changes that you had to make this work. I have said in my previous lesson that you guys should actually try and write the power function because it is fun to do. So for our next question for tomorrow, grade 11s, I don't think you would benefit from this. This is a question that we do in grade 12. This is our OOP question. We are going to look at the May-June 2019 question 3. So same time, same link, and please try it tomorrow so you guys can give me some lovely answers. And remember to follow these links, and you can download the past papers from education.gov.za. And thank you very much for watching. This was grade 12 IT, STEM Lockdown Digital School. Please remember to follow Africa Teen Gigs on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. See you guys tomorrow, same time, same link. Bye.